Right. So yeah, welcome to our How to Study for Statistics session. My name is Zach. I'm an academic coach, and with me is Patrick, and he is a statistics tutor. So in this, we wanted to try to apply some of these ideas from academic coaching specifically to statistics for you. And to do that, we brought the statistics tutor. So all of this is coming out of the Learning Center. In the Learning Center, we have these 5 different parts. So normally we have on-campus tutoring that occurs at the library at the Learning Center, but we don't have that right now. But we still do have our online tutoring. We also have Roads to Success presentations that focus on different academic skills such as motivation and study strategies. We have a college success course. That's a 3-hour course that studies these similar academic skills. And then we have academic coaching, where it's more of a one-on-one relationship between a coach and you as student, where we help you reach your academic and personal goals. So the objectives for this session are to introduce you to what we call a study cycle. It's a way you can break up your studying into different parts to make best use of your time. We'll introduce a few different kinds of active study strategies. So these are more active, where you're engaging more with your learning material. And hopefully by the end, you'll feel comfortable applying some of these strategies in your coursework. And so the study cycle for us has these 5 different parts. And so the first is, previewing the material before class. And we'll talk more about all of these parts in a moment. And then, you're attending class. Then after class, you're reviewing the material. And then you're having a time for studying the material. And then the last step is assessing, where you kind of reflect on your system and these different steps and ask if there's anything you feel like you should change. So the first step is previewing the material. And so this helps you, before class, have the material more fresh in your mind, kind of primes you for being in a better position for learning it. So you could do this by, for example, skimming over the chapter before class. And so skimming would include, noting the headings, charts and graphs. Sometimes at the end of chapters, there's a chapter summary. So one idea could be just kind of going through your chapter summary. There's also chapter objectives before chapter. You can look over that. And, you can find, what's going to be covered in class by going through your syllabus. And so this is important, as I was saying a moment ago, for introducing yourself to some of these concepts that you'll be dealing with in class. And I would suggest, if you don't understand some of the concepts that you are introduced to, not to worry too much about it, and not to try to learn everything before class, but just kind of to get a short introduction.
So what does this look like for statistic, like reviewing it? One of the ways would be doing your homework or just exercise on your book before class. And this would allow you to have questions when attending the class. And when you have questions and you could ask it to your professor, it would help clarify, and I think it would help your learning process, and you would understand the material more fully. And if you're stuck on a question before class while doing your exercise, I would recommend looking it up on Google or just any search engine in general, because usually they would provide really good explanations. And on top of this, you would ask your professor to make your knowledge whole and understand the whole concept of it.
Yeah, I think those are great ideas. And then the next step is actually attending class. And so, as much as you can, it's good to make this more of an active experience than kind of a passive experience. We'll talk more about that in a moment. But one way is to just asking questions. That can be, quite of a challenge right now with remote learning. But there is a chat function for raising your hand. So that may be one way that could help you to, get the professor's attention and ask a question. And then we suggest using the speaker view. So there's different ways to view these kind of chat screens in Zoom. One way is, having a lot of different screens that you're seeing at the same time. But another way is speaker view, where you're just viewing the person who's speaking. And so that may be easier for you to pay attention that way. Yeah, good.
For statistic, I would recommend always having some scratch paper or a book to write on to take notes because when attending the class, you usually could not understand everything just by passively looking at it. Later on, we're going to learn more about passive and active learning, but just try to follow through with the problems that the professor is doing in class in order to reference it later on when doing the homework. So you could see, oh, this is the steps that I took when doing it with my professor. Let me apply this also to the way I'm going to do it for my homework. And by doing so, usually you would be able to better finish your homework and get higher grades in general.
Um, yeah, one more thing I'll just say about attending class is just how important I think it is. And as I'm coaching and working with students, I think um, it can be tempting sometimes to skip class and just try to catch up on work. But I see so many people get behind that way, and there's extra information that you can get from the professor during class, and ultimately that professor is the one who's going to be making your tests. Yeah. Um, yeah. So the next step is reviewing. So this is referring to reviewing the material that you were given during class. And so, one way you could do that is rereading or reworking your notes. And we suggest, doing this within about 24 hours of the class. And so, for me, class, the pace can go kind of fast, and I'm trying to write down notes. When reviewing the notes, it gives you time to kind of clean those up because, as you're going kind of fast, they may not be very neat and may not be very nice to look at. Um, and so this gives you an opportunity to organize them, to clean them up, and to just um, get another chance to look at the material. Um, and what some students will do is they'll take their notes from class and then start on a new piece of paper and just rework them and kind of recreate them entirely. um, and it gives you an opportunity to identify what you didn't understand from class too. And if you collect those things that you didn't understand, those are subjects that you can bring to the professor during office hours, or maybe introduce to tutors, or look up yourself. um, and then one thing to consider when taking your notes and thinking about what would be the best way for you to review is you could think about what your learning style is. Um, and so we'll talk more about this in a moment. We have a test you can take to learn more about your learning style on the Learning Center's website. But thinking about your learning style um, could be good for you to think about how to review this material, whether you want to take your notes and say them out loud to or try to explain them to someone, or whether it's making flashcards, and quizzing yourself. So these are a few different ways of doing that review. And so this is a graph that shows the importance of reviewing. So you can see on the x-axis on the bottom, you have number of days, and on the y-axis on the left, you have percent retention of that information. So you can see at the beginning, you start off at about 100%, and over the course of a day, maybe you forget 20% of that, but then you review and you're back at 100, and then, but this time you forget, and it takes a couple of days to forget that much information. Then you review and it takes maybe 3 days. So each time that line slope becomes more gradual, and that information becomes more part of your long-term memory. And so here's a few different examples of learning styles. So we have visual graphic, where you're drawing your concepts. So maybe you're making graphs and charts. You could get a whiteboard and draw things on there. There's visual text. So maybe it's good for you to write out your ideas. Like for me, I like to try to write a paragraph to explain a concept, or you may use flashcards to quiz yourself. With auditory, it may be good to explain these ideas to another person and talk through them. And then with kinesthetics, if you can make the information more personal by relating it to your own life, or by creating some kind of movement, then maybe that could be helpful. And then again, we have a learning style assessment on the Learning Center's website. And here are 3 different note-taking strategies. You can see in the top left, this is called the Cornell method. And you have these larger subjects on the left, and then you see them broken down into smaller details on the right. And then on the bottom, you have a summary that where you sort of write out in sentences what's a summary of what's at the top of the paper. On the right is just kind of a basic outline. This seems to be where a lot of people gravitate to at the beginning. But I would encourage people, to experiment a little with some other kinds of note-taking strategies. And then there's mind mapping. And so this is great for showing relationships between different concepts.
Okay, so for statistics with your notes, I would recommend just like before doing it while your professor's doing your problem, while the professor's doing the problem, write it out with them. And if you could write it out with them, usually it would help a lot, because later on when you go home, you have an example to reference while doing your homework. Because statistic is mainly not really a theory based class. I would even say it's not a math class, it's more of a language class, because most of the time you do not really understand the question, and if you do not understand the question, you could not do the homework. Some additional notes and formulas that you could reference to is also located in the Learning Center's website. I wrote the website right here. And if you go there, there's a bunch for statistic 241, 243, 244, and hypothesis testing. And I think it's really helpful. I've helped a lot of students with it, and they usually bring it home and use it effectively.
Yeah, the next step, after we've previewed before class, we've attended class, and then we've done some bit of reviewing, is to actually dig in and have a study session. And so again, we talk about how repetition is really important, kind of casting your mind back to that graph we looked at. If you can make your studying more active, for example, by quizzing yourself or practicing tests, in statistics, practicing problems. Um, that would be great. That would be really important. If you can find a way to direct your learning through study guides, that could help you make the best use of your time. And for some people, studying with others is really helpful. And statistics, you need to explain your answers, and so that could really help you have someone to explain your answers to, so you know the meaning of what you're working with. And don't forget professor office hours. Professors love to see you come to office hours. Sometimes no one will come, um, so that's a great opportunity to talk to someone who makes your quizzes and makes your tests and can really direct you to the best thing for you to spend your time studying. Right. And so um, this is just saying that, exams are focused on output. So it's what's coming out of you. So if you are making your studying more active, then you're not just taking in information, but you're also putting out information, which is ultimately what you'll be doing on the test too. And here's a few ideas for active study strategies. So in passive strategies, it's like reading, listening to a lecture, watching a video. We're just kind of taking things in. But with active, we're also putting things out. So, you know, this has taking a practice test, creating note cards, and studying with a friend or a tutor.
By doing your homework first and having questions, coming to class with questions, you would be better set up for the studying session because now a lot of the things that you're questioning about has already been answered. And I would really recommend having a group. I've seen people, students that came in the first time for tutoring and they were completely lost with the subject. But once they have a group to discuss with, they were able to brainstorm questions and even ideas with their peers, and they would answer each other. And I actually found also for myself that when I'm teaching others about statistics, it actually helped makes my knowledge on statistics more concrete, and I just understand things better when I could explain it to someone else. So I would really recommend you guys to also do the same thing.
Yeah, and then this last step after we've had our study session is just kind of checking in with yourself and reflecting on how your system is working. And I think we can forget to actually do this. So it's good to, I think, set aside a little bit of time, maybe every week, to just kind of reflect back on your week and think about, what might be going wrong and what's going right. Um, if you want to meet with an academic coach, we can talk together about how your system's working, and we can introduce new ideas. Um, and yeah, um, and so as you're kind of assessing your system right now, this is an idea that you could think about for how to structure that study time. And so I know for me in the past, I would, sit down and I may just, you know, um, bear down and try to push through some chapter or some assignment and spend hours just kind of pushing through it. And then feeling kind of rough by the end of it. But that's kind of an unhealthy way to, have our relationship to our education. Um, so this is a way to structure your time that kind of helps keep you motivated and um, keep your endurance up. So it's breaking up your time into these four different parts. And so you can kind of think about the study session as a standalone kind of block of maybe an hour to hour and a half, something like that. Um, you know, from what I've learned talking to people, it takes some people longer to get to the point where they feel like they're doing good work. So maybe they need more time in their study session. But other people feel burnt out faster. And so maybe they have less time in their study session. So you'll find the one that works for you. So the first thing is, setting a goal and setting an intention so that you have a focus during the study session. And then you begin and you try to stay on task for that block of time. One thing that's been helpful for me is my phone can be a distraction. So I have an app on it called Forests, and it as I begin my study time, I start my planting in my forest, and if I study for like 15 minutes, it plants a little bush. But if I study for maybe an hour, it plants like a larger evergreen tree. And so I can also tell the app to stop planting if I pick up my phone and like check Twitter, Instagram, or something like that. So, it helps keep me, just kind of focused on the what I'm doing. Yeah. So after the study session, I think it's important that you take a break. And this may be 10, 15 minutes. I know for me, I can turn around and because we're not even commuting to school, I realize I've been inside for like 6 hours. And so it's good to go outside and, take a walk. You may have a snack, but just something that, will help you energize yourself and something that you enjoy. And so after this, the last step is just kind of reviewing. So this is kind of similar to that assessment step of the study cycle, where you kind of look back over and you can know whether you met your goal or you didn't. You could set a new goal for the next study session. You just kind of take a minute to think about how things are going. And sorry, one last thing. On the top right, you can see there's a link to our time survey. So because this is being recorded, you can't access that right now, but you can find that on the Learning Center's website. And so the time survey can be really helpful for you to get kind of like a big picture look at how you're spending your time. And so you enter in how many hours you're spending doing different tasks. And it also helps you think about how much time would be good to devote to different classes depending on their credit hours. Okay.
Um, so this is assessing how effective you are. It's really good to have a group because not that I promote you to compare your grades and feel bad for getting worse grades in your group, but I think it's really good to have a group because you could ask each other what worked for someone else and maybe you can try it out and it might work for you. And I would really recommend to just spend a specific amount of time every single day for statistics instead of having like a 5 hours to 6 hours study time prior to an exam, because usually you could not retain all the information that you study in a very short period of time. And statistic is more of a language problem. So you just need more repetition. If you have enough repetition, usually you'd be able to do well. And it requires a lot of energy to, finish a lot of the exercises because you need to really understand what the question is asking for.
Just to review, so we went over these 5 steps or for a study cycle. This is previewing material before class, being sure to attend class and try to make that kind of an active experience. Then reviewing that material within 24 hours of attending class, having a study session or a study block, and you may want to try like breaking up that time and including some breaks. And then creating an intentional time to kind of look back over your system and ask yourself how it's working. And if you want any more support, Patrick and I are here for you. Both the tutors and the coaches come out of the Learning Center. Um, so uh, you can usually make appointments for coaches the same day. And Patrick, do you suggest that people make appointments for tutors ahead of time? Can you usually make that like the same day, or is it?
So for tutoring, you need to first download the Benji app and just fill in some information that's necessary. And I would recommend just scheduling it through the app. And I would really recommend you to chat with the tutor and send your materials ahead of time so that the tutor would also have some time to review what you're about to ask. And I think it might help and be more effective during your session, your tutoring session.
Um, and that's all we have. Yeah, we're here to support you. I hope this was helpful for you, and thanks for watching.